Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into something we literally all navigate every single day, but so few of us actually master. We are exploring the fascinating science of human connection. We're going to be drawing from some incredible insights by mentalist Oz Pearlman and author Mel Robbins. Now, right off the bat, we need to address a massive misconception. A lot of people think charisma is just this mystical, magical trait that you're either born with or you're not. Well, Oz Pearlman argues the exact opposite. Charismatic, deeply memorable people aren't born that way, they are made. They're made through deliberate, totally learnable habits. So let's unpack exactly what those habits are.
To start, I want you to really anchor yourself to this one undeniable truth. People rarely remember exactly what you said. They remember how you made them feel. This is the core of everything we're talking about today. Every psychological trick, every memory habit, every communication strategy we're about to explore, it all circles completely back to this idea. Whether you're trying to impress a new boss, make a friend at a party, or just command a room with confidence, your primary goal actually shouldn't be figuring out the smartest or funniest thing to say. Your goal is simply making the person standing in front of you feel comfortable, valued, and genuinely heard.
So let's challenge a really common assumption right here, right now. Are memorable people born or are they made? Be honest, when you picture the most charismatic person in a room, who pops into your head? It's usually the loudest person, right? The extrovert who completely dominates the conversation, tells the absolute best jokes, and just naturally pulls all the attention. We need to completely dismantle that myth. You do not need to be naturally loud or inherently magnetic to capture a room. There's no way. In fact, some of the absolute most memorable people out there simply use keen observation, a little bit of psychology, and a genuine, deep curiosity about others. It's a process that is 100% accessible to you, whether you're the biggest extrovert on earth or a total introvert. But of course, before we can even begin to connect with others, we have to get past our own internal roadblocks, right? Meeting strangers or initiating a difficult conversation just makes a lot of us really uncomfortable. Our brains have this funny way of massively exaggerating immediate discomfort. You know that feeling when you're hesitating for literally 2 hours over sending one important email? To combat this, Oz Pearlman introduces something called the fast-forward technique. It's a brilliant way to shrink that emotional fear by creating psychological distance. It's 3 steps. Step 1, ask yourself, how much is this going to matter in 24 hours? Usually the answer is, not very much. Step 2, what about in 1 week? Step 3, in 1 year. By mentally fast-forwarding, you're just reminding your brain that most of our immediate paralyzing fears completely disappear with time. Suddenly, that daunting task shrinks down and feels entirely manageable.
Okay, so let's put this into practice. Imagine you're at a networking event. Approaching someone new bubbles up all sorts of anxieties. What if they don't like me? What if the silence is awkward? What if I'm interrupting? Instead of just walking up and saying, "Hey, can I talk to you?" you approach them and try this. "Hey, I only have 30 seconds before I need to head over there, but I really wanted to quickly introduce myself." This is called the 30-second rule. It is a total game changer. It immediately removes all the social pressure. Think about it. Humans naturally avoid situations where they feel trapped. By giving the interaction a strict, spoken time limit, you create an instant bubble of psychological safety. The other person knows they aren't stuck with you, so their guard drops and they instantly relax. And ironically enough, because they are relaxed, these little 30-second interactions almost always organically blossom into much longer, super enjoyable conversations.
Now, once you're actually in the conversation, how do you avoid that dreaded dead-end small talk? Well, there's a massive difference between asking fact questions and asking story questions. Typical small talk relies heavily on facts. Someone asks, "What do you do?" The answer is usually a brief, factual statement. "I'm an engineer." And then, crickets. The conversation just hits a wall. Both people were probably trying to be polite and appear interesting, but the exchange stays incredibly shallow. Instead, you've got to pivot to narrative-driven questions. Try asking, "What inspired you to choose that career?" Or instead of the classic, "Do you like traveling?" ask, "What's the most unforgettable place you've ever visited?" See the difference? Stories reveal a person's actual personality. People absolutely love telling stories because it lets them relive positive emotions, and sharing those emotions is exactly what creates a strong, lasting connection.
And hey, while they are telling you that story, your only job is to practice the quiet confidence of active listening. We so often mistake volume for confidence. But true confidence is actually incredibly calm. It means being perfectly comfortable with a little bit of silence. You want to maintain steady eye contact, avoid jumping in or interrupting, and this is absolutely crucial, guys. You have to stop planning your next answer while they are still talking. We're all guilty of this, just waiting for our turn to speak. Don't do it. Just stay genuinely curious about what they're saying right now.
In today's hyper-distracted, screen-obsessed world, giving someone your complete, undivided attention is literally the greatest compliment you can offer them. If you become that person who truly, deeply listens, you're going to instantly stand out from the crowd.
Which naturally brings us to one of the mentalist's absolute ultimate secret weapons. What do you think the most emotionally powerful word is in any language? It's a person's name. When you remember someone's name, they instantly feel respected. They feel noticed. They feel deeply valued. On the flip side, forgetting a name isn't necessarily intentionally rude, but it sends a subtle signal that you just weren't fully paying attention when they introduced themselves. Remembering names isn't just a party trick, it is the absolute foundation of making the people around you feel significant.
But how do you actually do it? I know a lot of us say I'm just terrible with names. We assume mentalists like Oz Pearlman had these freakish photographic memories. They really don't. They just have better systems than we do. Let's walk through his incredibly simple 3-step name memory system. Step 1. Listen carefully. This means actively stopping your internal monologue about how you're going to introduce yourself and putting 100% of your focus into hearing their name the first time. Step 2. Repeat it. If she says, "Hi, I'm Sarah," you instantly, out loud reply, "Nice to meet you, Sarah." Repeating it creates a mental pathway. Step 3. Use it again. Continue naturally by saying something a moment later like, "So Sarah, how long have you lived in the area?" That second repetition is the secret sauce. It effectively locks the name into your short-term memory.
Now, if you want to completely supercharge that system, you use visual associations. Human brains are basically wired to remember images far better than they remember abstract words. So if you want to dramatically improve your recall, connect their name to a vivid, even ridiculous mental picture right there in the moment. Let's say you meet a woman named Rose. Briefly imagine her holding a massive, vibrant red rose. Or if you meet a guy named Sunny, picture him completely surrounded by blinding, bright sunlight. I know, it might sound a little silly or goofy, but these quirky psychological image tricks are exactly how memory experts perform what look like superhuman feats of recall.
Okay, now this next habit might surprise you a bit, but it is incredibly powerful. Oz Pearlman highly recommends taking actual notes on new connections right after a meeting or a networking event. Just pull out your phone when you get to your car and jot down details like their children's names, their birthdays, hobbies, favorite sports teams, or recent vacations they mentioned. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Isn't taking notes on people a little weird? No, it is actually a highly empathetic habit used by some of the most successful leaders, entrepreneurs, and politicians in the world. Think about it from the other side. If you run into someone months later and they casually ask, "Hey, how did your daughter enjoy her first semester of college?" How does that make you feel? You feel profoundly remembered. And memory is a profound form of caring. It quietly communicates to them, "You matter to me."
As you start building these deeper connections, you're also going to need to navigate the natural ebb and flow of conversations, which really requires reading the room. Mentalists often look like they're reading minds up on stage, but here is the big secret. They absolutely don't read minds. They read behavior patterns, and more importantly, they observe sudden changes in those patterns. Behavior constantly reveals hidden emotions. What you're looking for is a baseline, and then a deviation from that baseline. For instance, you want to spot when someone who is normally highly energetic suddenly gets very quiet, or when someone who is normally cool and calm suddenly starts speaking really rapidly. These shifts, those deviations, are your cues that something beneath the surface has just changed. However, you've got to be super careful here, not to judge a single isolated action. This is a big mistake people make. If someone crosses their arms, it doesn't automatically mean they're feeling defensive or closed off. Maybe the air conditioning is blasting and they're literally just cold. Instead, you need to look for behavioral clusters. Look for multiple visual cues stacking up together. If they are avoiding eye contact, and they're touching their face, and there's some nervous laughter happening, and the story they are telling is getting a bit inconsistent, okay, now you have a cluster. Multiple cues working together create much stronger evidence that you're dealing with a baseline of stress or discomfort in that conversation.
And understanding this reveals a super common trap people fall into, the detail trap. It is absolutely true that when people are lying, they often over-explain. They provide totally unnecessary details to make their fabricated story sound credible. They'll say something like, "I left my house at exactly 8:17, drove 3 blocks, and had to stop because a bright blue truck crossed the intersection." Truthful people, on the other hand, generally tell much simpler, straightforward stories. But, and this is a huge but, this is not absolute proof of deception. Honest people who just suffer from social anxiety or who simply have a highly detail-oriented personality might do the exact same thing when they're totally telling the truth. These behavioral cues always have to be put into context.
Sooner or later, no matter how good your communication skills are, you are going to encounter difficult people. We all do. A toxic coworker, a rude customer, an incredibly angry relative. When someone lashes out at you, the most powerful mindset shift you can possibly make is recognizing that their difficult behavior almost always reflects their own internal struggles. Their anger is usually just a mask. It's a mask for their own stress, insecurity, fear, or disappointment. It is very, very rarely a true reflection of you or anything you've done. Reframing their hostility as just a symptom of their own internal frustration is like a superpower. It allows you to remain completely calm and objective rather than getting defensive and taking it personally.
So, when you are faced with that difficult behavior, what do? Your ultimate defense mechanism is incredibly simple. Pause, breathe, think, respond intentionally. Firing back with an emotional reaction just creates much bigger problems. So many arguments drag on forever simply because both people desperately want to have the last word. But here's the secret. You don't have to win every argument. Protecting your peace of mind is almost always more valuable than proving you were right. Taking that momentary, deliberate pause prevents regretful, heated reactions. And honestly, sometimes simply walking away from the interaction demonstrates the greatest strength of all.
So, considering everything we've talked about today, from the active listening to the memory systems to gracefully navigating conflict, we have to ask the ultimate question. What is true charisma? I really want you to completely discard everything you've ever been taught about having a perfect physical appearance or needing a flawless sense of humor or putting on this masterful, theatrical performance for a crowd. If charisma isn't about being the shiny center of attention, what is it?
Here it is. Charisma is curiosity. That is the punchline. This is the defining psychological mindset shift of this entire explainer. Truly great communicators are not performing for their audience, they are exploring their audience. Human beings intrinsically enjoy conversations with individuals who ask thoughtful questions and make them feel genuinely seen. When you are deeply, genuinely curious about the person standing in front of you, you naturally exude a warmth and a presence that people find just incredibly magnetic.
I love this phrase. Stop worrying about being fascinating. Become fascinated. It's such a powerful, remarkably simple philosophy. Think about how much pressure that takes off your shoulders. When you stop stressing over how you sound, or how interesting your hobbies are, or whether your jokes are landing perfectly, and you shift that spotlight entirely onto the other person, the anxiety just completely evaporates. By becoming fascinated with them, you naturally create better, deeper, and far more memorable conversations without even trying to force it.
Ultimately, all of this effort, all of these interactions, they lead to one thing: trust. And trust is absolutely not won with clever manipulation or fancy magic tricks. Trust is compounded over time through reliable, empathetic daily actions. It's about consistently practicing honesty, showing up and giving your undivided attention, remembering someone's name, keeping your promises, and following up when you say you will. When you consistently show up with these small everyday habits, you prove to people that they matter. And the research consistently backs this up. People rate their interactions as far more enjoyable when they simply feel understood and heard. So, the most crucial point of all of this is application. You definitely don't need to transform into a master mentalist overnight. You just need to take action. Pick just one small habit from today to practice, just one. Make it a goal to learn and mentally lock in one new person's name today. Or, the next time you're chatting with someone, challenge yourself to ask one story question instead of a boring fact question. Or, hey, simply commit to putting your phone away completely, out of sight during your next conversation. Over weeks and months, these tiny, seemingly insignificant daily actions will compound to completely transform your communication skills and the quality of your relationships. Which brings us to our final thought. I want to leave you with this provocative question, and it ties perfectly back to exactly where we started. When you walk away from a conversation today,